Hey everybody, this is Silver Spook, and this is the video on the Witcher and the moral choices. Moral, more. Well, I don't know how to read that in Tumblr speak, but moral choices, and also the unbearable weight of golden-eyed slash hearted dude protagonism. Obviously, that's the protagonist of the Witcher. If you don't know anything about it, although it's a very popular show, a very popular video game series, and also it is based on a fantasy novel series by a Polish author. So yeah, but I think most people, you can look that up easily. But The Witcher is a show that is now gonna have possibly a fourth season. They're in talks on that. Who is gonna be in it exactly? Not clear. How the new casting is gonna happen is also not clear. Um, I figured like it's kind of a hot buzz show now, even though it's not out. Although I think they did just release the Witcher, the next Witcher season 3, if I'm not mistaken. So I have not watched it. So I've not actually watched all of The Witcher yet. So I can't give my full verdict on that. But I've been watching some of The Witcher, just to get abreast of that, or a pecked of that, you should say. And also abreast it. There's a lot of tits and dragons, I think, is the catchphrase. Witcher, boobing boobily, and dragoning draggily. And there's too much drag in this show. It's pretty straight. But anyways, the Witcher is a show that does have a lot of. It has a lot of things going on in it. It's it's more complicated than just boobs and fire breathing and fantasy BS. But it was kind of touted at the time when it came out. As I was going back in and looking at some older reviews, like it had like a 60% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes and like 90 something on the audience Rotten Tomato meter. And so it was it was doing fairly well. But The Witcher, it was definitely compared to Game of Thrones initially because it has a lot of very I when I watched it when I was watching it. I don't watch tons of fantasy shows and play a ton of fantasy games. I mean, obviously my my cyber bread and my neon butter is obviously the cyberpunk genre. Although I have been doing that for so long, it's kind of have been like looking into doing some moving into both playing, watching, and also creating games potentially in another genre as an indie game developer. And so the but I haven't watched every single fantasy show that's come out. I haven't seen like the latest Game of Thrones, what is it, Blood of the Dragon or Fists of Medieval Fury, what is it, blonde headed Targaryen incest love machine. That sounds like an anime though. Great, doesn't that sound like an anime show? Blonde headed Targaryen incest love machine, or like magical magical platinum boob librarian. That's an anime version of The Witcher crossover with Game of Thrones, I think. Anyways, where Geralt has sex with random Targaryen girls, naked, you know, communicating only through baritone grunts and the tip of his penis. That's basically how he talks. And more frequently, well, the only time he actually uses his words to communicate is to his horse, Roach. So that's interesting. And so The Witcher is. I'm joking though. I'm not. I don't think they're actually gonna make that show. Um. Although if they make that show, I want 20% of the revenue. After the AI takes 90% of the cut because they use that and all the writers quit. So I guess I won't be making any money from magical platinum penis boy librarian Um, but one can hope. Anyways, we'll see how Neofeud 2 does, and I gotta have to try to pitch that show to Netflix. So, anyways, the magical amulet silver neck boy, magical amulet silver neck librarian femboy. That's gonna be the show. It's gonna be the non-binary Witcher remake, and then Yennefer will be recast as well. So The Witcher is a show that does have moral choices in it. The game, another thing that was important about the game, not important, but the only thing that was like memorable about the game is that the character that you play is often having to choose sides. I'm gonna kind of skip the recap the whole plot, because if you want to look, you can watch some other video, read a review, look at the IMDb synopsis if you want to know what this game and this show and this books are about. You can go to the public library that hopefully has not been burned down, much like in Rage Against the Machines Bulls on Parade. They don't gotta burn the books, they just remove them. They don't gotta ban Witcher. They just have really difficult casting problems because people don't follow orders on the set of the show. Anyways, and then don't like listen to people are playing video. Henry Cavill ends up playing video games for 45 hours straight and misses casting calls and doesn't get his Arya his butterscotch eyeball lenses properly inserted and his makeup done properly because he was too busy playing Assassin's Creed or what the hell ever he was playing. So that actually happened apparently. But anyways, so Witcher, but The Witcher does have a lot of moral choices. Let's look at that up. Okay, how The Witcher ruined morality systems for me. I thought this was an interesting article because it does center specifically the moral systems. Now this comes from the game, but this comes through in this show as well. So this is the character Geralt of Rivia, the main character from the video game. He looks pretty close to what Henry looked like. But anyways, I've been writing my RPG book over the last month. The game changed. One thing I want to talk about was also like in games, because moral choices were like a big buzz term. They were real like hot topic. They're a real brand new system that was being inserted into a lot of games in the like noughties. It's basically the time when I stopped playing video games because I didn't like the direction they were going in, to be honest. I stopped playing most major new games that were coming out in that time. But anyway, so morality systems, light, gray, and dark sides. The game that could be, or light, dark, and gray sides. The game that could be credited is the Knights of the Old Republic. That was kind of these first to bring about morality systems where whether you would end up on the Jedi or the Sith side was decided through specific player choices throughout the game. The further the player went to either side, the more corresponding their powers would unlock. So it kind of like, so basically what you did in the game ended up deciding what side you would end up on, right? So if you saved innocent people, didn't commit heinous crimes, war crimes, if you didn't if you stopped bad people, you fought Siths, if you fought dark side entities, then you would end up on the Jedi side. If you did the opposite, if you stole things or just if you were a bad boy, if you committed the sins against his Lord and Savior George Lucas, like if you didn't buy all 50 plus re-edits of Star Wars The New Hope, then you went to Sith hell, and because George Lucas's bank account was very sad, and so that made you be on the dark side. Because if you don't buy Disney products, including all Star Wars products now, you go to the dark side, and that is called the place where you have no money under capitalism. So anyways, so this system would soon be copied by many AAA studios and further done by BioWare into the 2010s with Mass Effect. Looking back on it from its conceptual and a design point of view, morality systems were just an awful design. So I mean, this is somebody's opinion, obviously. So BioWare was a big one that came out in this time. Mass Effect used such a system. Angel or Dev. The problem with morality systems is that they present one of the most gamey, arbitrary systems that someone could put in the game. I should grab my glasses real fast. I need to read a lot more. For many games that went this way, morality broadly defined the player as a goody two shoes who would agree with everyone no matter what, or a jerk that liked to kick puppies and steal from orphans. For a lot of these games, morality really didn't affect the larger story or how people treated the player. No matter how evil you got, there was always a greater evil that you would have to defeat in the end. So, the thing about the morality systems is that you always have you would always have this kind of you're always gonna have to fight the big bad guy. It also just kind of from a side note game perspective. I've talked about this before, but I really don't like the this idea that, or maybe it could be just me. I mean, this is just my personal take, but the idea that players in a video game can literally do anything at all that they would like. So if they want to go into a world and they want to just shoot everyone on sight, right? And they can do that. I don't like that concept. Or if they want to steal cars. Like Grand Theft Auto was one of those games that came out in the 90s that started pioneering this thing. It's a sandbox game. You can do anything that you want, and obviously Minecraft is probably like an exception to that, but because I like my Holly and my kids, they like to play Minecraft a whole lot. Minecraft is such a huge major, it's like the top 3 selling. I think it's like Tetris, Grand Theft Auto, Minecraft, right? It's like, I think maybe it's been replaced by something else, but the Minecraft is another sandbox game, but that that one's like it's not made to be a super serious adult grown up. I say made to be adult, but there are not many adults in the gaming world, sadly. I mean, it's seriously lacking, unfortunately. Though they are 35, 40, 55 years old, including this person. But anyways, so the 3D games, like for example Mass Effect, right? Where you could do anything and you could end up on one side or the other, right? These are like they're games set in like realistic, gritty universes with adult choices, and Grand Theft Auto was a game that was set up. You're inside of a Los Angeles real city with real criminals, real cops, and real it's like Cyberpunk 2077 is so Grand Theft Auto, and this game like was really popular. You can have sex with your prostitutes, you can beat the women, and then you can shoot them, kill people, kill anyone, kill cops, kill your friends, kill enemies, just kill random people, run over people. And these sandbox games, they were like, now this one, it didn't focus on the morality, just like do whatever, right? And then later on they were like, okay, well maybe we can have big sandbox games. So like Knights of the, so like Knights of the Republic was a game like they were talking about where, okay, well if you do bad things in the sandbox, okay, so you can do anything. But if you do bad things to good people, right? If you just kill the random Tatooine bartender that didn't, deserve that, then you become bad. And if you kill Sith, then that's good. If you don't save innocent people when they're being attacked by the Empire, you're bad. And then if you save a Sith from death, then if you save them, you're good. If you don't save them, you're bad. If you save a bad person, then you're good, right? So it's kind of like, well, this is how games started to try to, the games wanted to try to keep having these sandbox style games where when you move through the world, you can do anything that you want. Sorry, I'm just like looking for it. But yeah. So, you know, yeah, when you move to the world, you can do anything that you want. Because before that, basically, I mean, and like, you kind of like see how this kind of works. The way that I see it is kind of like, I talked about Doom and first-person shooters and Quake last time and Nine Inch Nails, and you know, just to shout out my last video because that's, you know, to like internally market with internal links to get people to watch my videos channel. That's not my main deal, but I did make a video about Captain Marvel last time, and it specifically talked about 90s and game design, and that kind of goes back to the Diablo 4 demonic microtransactions and why new modern games are more bad in certain ways. And the Captain Marvel, you know, stream, you know, I talked about how Captain Marvel has after this video plays, I talked about how Captain Marvel has a lot of 90s aspects to it that I liked, like the Nine Inch Nails, which Nine Inch Nails also was in Quake, and also you know, how the and the games in that time, and you know, the world in that time was different. And one of the things that was different, on top of the way that games were produced, right? Unlike in the 90s and then certainly now, is that they were smaller teams, like 5-10 people. The computer capabilities, you know, you had like 66 megahertz Pentium processor, was fast, you know, and so you couldn't have like entire universes built out, you know, like in this time. Let's see, did we get there? Okay. Okay, no. Looks like we didn't. Okay, it doesn't matter. Okay. Well, I don't know what the hell's happening here. Okay. I hope that's not playing any sound. Anyways, so, you know, so in Doom, like, this is a mid-90s game, right? So in Doom, you didn't really have the possibility of building an entire universe. Yeah, I know it's mature. I'm an adult. Okay, I take that back. You know, just because I'm 40, I have to get out my adult card, because nowadays you have like long-term extended childhoods. You know, people don't grow up possibly ever. You know, it's kind of adulthood is optional nowadays. But anyways, so the Doom game is a game that only has everything in the game, right? Is you know, imps. They're demonic imps from hell. Their bosses, the Hell Knights and the Barons of Hell, they're like 9 foot tall, giant, green, hellfire shooting, soul eating demons. And then they have their possessed, you know, UAC Marine privates and shotgun blasting sergeants that will shoot at you, working for their Dark Lord himself, the Cyber Demon, or Henry Kissinger. I can't remember which one. So the actual game only has, in Doom, right? It only has characters which are basically can only be bad. They're obviously and unmistakably bad. They're only there to kill you. There's no moral qualms, right? There are no moral gray areas. There's burning red bad things, and then there's like you, and you're like in a green suit of armor, kind of look like this dude, and you're shooting them because they're trying to eat your soul, kill you, drag you to hell, and torture you indefinitely, kill all of the people of Earth. They're bad. They're just bad, right? And so I think John Romero has actually talked about this, right? John Romero actually said something like, I'm making Nazis in Wolfenstein. John Romero was, of course, one of the creators, also an indigenous person who worked on Wolfenstein, which was the predecessor to Doom. Was id Software's major one of the first person shooters. Why is shooting Nazis more relevant now? Speaking of moral, we're going to get to the moral choices of the Western world and the descendants of the Europeans and their folklore upon which Witcher is based. But we're going to get to that later on, okay? But let's just take, why are you shooting Nazis in Wolfenstein? And why is that relevant? It's kind of, even Indiana Jones, like I brought up last time, right? Wait, why is shooting Nazis questionable now? Especially in the gaming world, right? Um, right? Why is punching Nazis as Indiana Jones, right? Harrison Ford says punching Nazis. He says punch Nazis just like Indy would. Okay, so Harrison Ford has lost a lot of fans in the Western world. He lost a lot of fans when he said that. That's a controversial statement to make, right? So, and this does come back to what makes something morally gray, right? Well, what makes something morally gray? Sometimes it depends on the time and the culture, the society, the civilization within which it is made, right? Because John, also Harrison was not thinking that it would be 2023, the year of our Zuckerbergian Lord, the year of our Ocean's Gate billionaire submarine neo-feudal lords, 2023 in the United States, and you can't punch Nazis, right? But this is an interesting place we're in. The realm of fictional characters who were well known for punching Nazis, Indiana Jones has to be the top. So might wonder what he has to say about that. Ford sat down with Yahoo, which asked him if he thinks Indiana Jones would still be punching Nazis today, since they've been making a comeback. The answer is sure. As Ford, would Indiana Jones be okay with punching Nazis? He'd push him out of the way to get in the first punch, as well he should. And then people got mad at him in the United States. Gamers got mad at him. I don't know what that says about the gaming community. But anyway, so what really, it's like that's coming back. It's the way the world has come a long way since Wolfenstein 3D, even longer since Castle Wolfenstein. John Romero, one of the founding members of id Software, developed Wolfenstein back in 1992. It doesn't work on a series anymore, but he still keeps an eye on it. This happened, and I actually wrote an article when this happened. There was a scene in in 2017. In 2017, the Wolfenstein Shadow of the New Colossus came out, and there was a meme where a Nazi is getting punched, right? I don't know if anybody remembers this, right? Shadow of the New Colossus Nazi punch meme. It's a short meme. Yeah, this one. Oh, this one here. Pro Nazi punching meme. And this the meme was going around, and then it caused a controversy, which is that it's not okay to punch Nazis, is basically what it said. I mean you just imagine the kind of things that people were saying, right? Certain people were saying, and he said he doesn't. So John doesn't work on the series anymore, but he still keeps an eye on it. He thinks Machine Games' take on the series, The New Order and Wolfenstein 2, The New Colossus, is the best it has ever been. I feel that this new one is basically going to be like what Doom did for the Doom franchise. Because there was a Doom 2016 that came out the year before that. Wolfenstein has been a really great franchise. So despite I'm trying to find the part about it. Yeah, so what they've done is amazing, pretending that Nazis are all over the U.S. now, and alternate timeline stuff. Pretending Nazis are all over the U.S. It's funny, you're pretending. What are you talking about pretending? They're just all over. And alternate timeline stuff, I think it's awesome. I like that what they've done with it. I like that they're experimenting with the new storylines. So Romero, though, doesn't see links between Nazis and Wolfenstein. Anyways, so it's like I mean, what I wanted to get to was that he actually mentioned in another because I was talking about moral choices, right? And he mentioned that when he decided to use the Nazis as the enemies in the first 3D first person shooter game that he worked on, I think there might have been an earlier one, but this is the first well known one. So and it was before Wolfenstein 3D, there was also Wolfenstein, and John Romero chose to use, or the team chose to use Nazis because he said when you enter Wolfenstein, you're gonna be a person with a gun and you're gonna be shooting, right? And so they were like, okay, well if we're gonna be inside, if we're gonna be entering this game, right, and we're just gonna be shooting like realistic guns. We're gonna have like, you know, submachine guns, pistols, rifles, right? Maybe a bazooka, you know, a grenade launcher or something. We can't be shooting these guns, just shooting these guns at just anyone, right? If it's gonna be, I mean, it's gonna be like actual humans, like semi-realistic, historical or something. So like, who are we gonna be shooting at? And then they were like, okay, well, how Nazis? Because who likes Nazis? Fascists. The United States fought people who thought that people should be killed based on arbitrary characteristics like their skin color, like their ethnicities, like being gay, you know, all these things. So that's obviously bad, right? Because Nazis are obviously Nazis are obviously morally black. They're not morally gray. They're like definitely bad in the United States. We're gonna talk about moral choices, right? And then and so oh yeah, of course we use it because everybody accepts that fascism is bad and these hateful ideologies are not good. Now we say, of course, Nazis don't, right? Fascists don't think that. They think that their ideology is 100% correct. But anyways, that gets you to another place, but we're not talking about that right now. And so when the game came out, there was no controversy about. No, they like when Doom and Wolfenstein came out, right? There was controversy around the so see, this is the difference, right? The controversy in 2017. This is The Guardian with Nazis as bad guys in video games. How is that controversial? Well, I mean, let's ask the West. Let's ask the United States, NATO, and the imperialist capitalism that backs fascists that make that the case. Why? But this is the Guardian article. This is not E3. This is not PC Gamer. This is not Rock, Paper, and Shotguns. This is like a this is a mainstream media outlet in the West going, Nazis are controversial. This is how big it was because it had to be. It was a big major pushback happening. White grievance is on the rise around the world, even in the non-real world, as criticism of the latest installment of Wolfenstein games demonstrates. So to punch Nazis became morally gray. Is what I'm trying to say. You know, right? How did that happen, right? Whereas in Doom, controversy, 90s. Not everyone was enthusiastic when the game first came out. The level of gore and violence was unprecedented. The game was full of satanic symbols and hell's imagery. So there were controversies, right, when Doom came out. And some of the controversies when Doom came out, the first-person shooter. Actually, let me look at Wolfenstein 3D controversy. I don't know if it wasn't as big. Okay, so Wolfenstein 3 was banned in Germany, but why was it banned in Germany, right? It was banned in Germany not because in the 90s, right? Wolfenstein 3D was banned in Germany because it had Nazis in it, and they were like anti-Nazi laws, right? You know, like whenever you Germany, when you tweet on Twitter, sometimes you'll get this message that says, under German law, we have investigated into your intentions and content in this tweet according to German anti-hate rules. But that has to do with anti-Nazi rules, right? So Germany banned it because Nazis are bad, right? And there's too much Nazi imagery inside this game, right? I think that was part of it. Back in the day, in the 90s when Wolfenstein 3D came out, right? And so Nazi, so that's another. And the controversy was around the violence when it came to the U.S. controversies, right? It was more about the violence. It was about there's too much shooting, there's realistic guns, there's blood. Like Mortal Kombat had this, right? This is the part of the whole all the buzz and all of the culture war back and forth about video games don't make kids violent. And then the Columbine shooting happened, and then there's this more like we have to ban video games because video games are making our teenagers go to high schools in trench coats, and then shoot up the entire high school And then since then, it's kind of interesting to look back then because at that time it was like one shooting and then there's huge outrage. There's like a shooting every day. There are mass shootings every day in the United States nowadays. There's like more than one a day, and they're happening at schools all the time. They don't even get reported anymore, right? It's kind of like and also simultaneously punching Nazis, killing Nazis was completely not controversial in the 90s. Now it's like, oh, well, you can't do that. And also, let's just keep shooting up all of our schools and not reporting on it. And so that's like you see how like what is acceptable or what is not has moved, a great deal. But also, it was the violence in the games, showing of blood and guts and gore, heads getting, because Hitler's head, you shoot cyber Hitler, and you blow up his mecha. You blow up Hitler's Robo Kaiju. I don't know if the kids know what a Megazord is, but Hitler is basically in Wolfenstein is in a huge machine body with like 4 Gatling guns coming out his arms, and he's got swastikas and symbols of the Third Reich all over himself, and he's literally Hitler inside, and he has like a space suit on, and he's shooting at you, and he's trying to kill you, and he's like yelling, hail the SS, and he's like, join the Ukrainian Stepan Bandera worshippers. That's what he's yelling in the 90s. He's recruiting for the NED and the United States State Department for its proxy wars. That's what Hitler was doing. I'm just kidding. That's what they resurrected him, and he came back to life, and he's trying to recruit people to start proxy wars and continue what the Germans were doing in the 1940s against Russia. But anyways, so so Hitler is shooting his Gatling guns. You blow it up, and then you kill him. And, and not just him, you kill other Nazis, lots of them. You shoot their arms out, their legs off. What people were upset about was not that you were killing Nazis in the U.S., for the most part. They were upset that kids were seeing blood and guts and gore, and what hadn't happened before. And that was the major, thing. And so when Doom came out, right, the level of gore and violence was unprecedented. The game was full of, and there was a satanic panic element to that. So there were pentagrams, there's demons, there are, heavy metal soundtrack. When you play a drop D chord with the saturation up to 10, you hit your boss overdrive pedal, chain link to a distortion pedal, chain link to a Yamaha PSR, Yamaha bank pedal with extra crunch and extra distortion on it, and then you put a chorus on that drop D BC Rich Warlock chord that causes Satan to come out of the ground. That literally happens in this Australian horror show. Well, I mean, you got to play a drop D and then a drop F and then a drop H sharp major and then a drop C minor and then a diminished 7th, and then Satan comes out when you play the chord. So that's how Satan comes Satan comes up from the fiery pits of hell, also known as Europe. When you get and you hit the right series of chords, then the United States shows up and blows your country into the Stone Age and commits genocidal war for capitalism. So, you gotta watch out what chords. When you play chords on guitars, just full disclosure, I've played a lot of chords on my guitar. Okay, I've never seen any demons ever come into this room. I'll eat your soul. No, but I've never brought demons into my childhood bedroom or the bedroom next to me or into my computer. It's totally fine. Okay, just play all the chords. Just don't find the pick of destiny. That might do something though. Get ask Jack Black about that. But I'm pretty sure the pick of destiny that might summon Satan. Anyways, so not everyone was enthusiastic about Doom though. All jokes aside, the satanic symbols were problematic in the 1990s for where the U.S. and Western culture was at that time. Satanic symbols, hellish imagery. Parents deplored Doom, and many young gamer was forced to play only when home alone. I remember this. It was like I had friends and parents were like, "Oh, what are you guys playing?" People are getting all upset. I talked about this last time, and then Trent Reznor loved Doom, and then he demanded to have Doom PCs set up inside of his palatial trailers when he was touring on the Nine Inch Nails, The Downward Spiral, and the Nine Inch Nails. Can't remember the other albums because that's the only one that matters. I'm just kidding. They have more than one. They have many good songs, but um, Doom was a game that caused controversy. My point is that it caused controversy because of the violence, not because. Well, I mean, again, what does it mean, right? It means that fascism and Nazism is strongly taken hold of the United States and the Western world because it became, especially gaming culture, such that game companies literally changed the name of their so like what was that game company changes Nazis to German combatants. There were so many, the gaming community, the gaming culture was so bad that there was a game company, I can't remember which one it was, but they actually players fight as will be fighting as Germans, not Nazis, right? So the and there was another one though. There was another one where they actually changed the name. Was it Battlefield? Yeah. They changed the name of the German characters, the Nazis, into German combatants. But the thing is, they said it was because we didn't want people to feel bad. No, the reason why they changed the name from Nazis to German combatants is because there are huge swaths of fascists, far right, in the gaming gaming consumer world, in the game. I can't call it a community because it's not a community. In the gaming. In the world of gamers and people who play video games, there are huge swaths of these people who are far right. You know that when you're in the game, and this whole like normalization of like N-words and all the most racist and most disgusting things. The like Steve Bannon himself, as I like to bring up, said literally, right, that the gaming, in gaming you have this massive power of rootless white males who need some kind of goal to something to do with their life, and they have so much free time and energy, and you can push them into the right, you can push them into Brexit or Trump or at the time Milo Yiannopoulos blogs or whatever we want them to do. And so and that's where everybody, like, there's even a joke. It's not really a joke. There's a serious thing that people say, which is that I am a 25-year-old gamer and I had my Nazi phase, forgive me, right? It's like, or I'm not a Nazi anymore. But you hear that all the time. Why do you hear that all the time? Because because that's where gaming culture has been. That's where games have been. And rebranding Nazis into German combatants is because it was not morally gray anymore to be a Nazi, or it was now suddenly morally gray to be a Nazi because half of the Western world is just Nazi. They don't say it out loud, right? And then Trump was elected president. And everyone, and then just things continue to go in that direction. Now that Trump getting elected president is what moved it. The culture was already moving in that direction, and that was the reflection of that. Is that a person who openly just said things like, "We should ban all Muslims and Hispanics, and everybody coming from the south of the border is murderers and rapists, and just the most racist things, the most bigoted things." He could just get elected on that, right? And not just him, all around. There's Alternative for Deutschland, Alternative for Sweden, right? Central South America, India elected a ethno-nationalist president. This was just sweeping the world. The gaming culture, I make this point a lot, so I'll cut it off there. I talk about this a lot, but the point is that, like, so what counts as morally gray shifts over time in a culture. I'm coming back to The Witcher, right? But I wanted to kind of go off on that for a bit. Because I think it's important that, because I'm not just talking about Witcher, I'm not just reviewing a movie or a TV show or a game or a book series on this stream. I'm like talking about other things as well, but I use these as a jumping off point. And so what counts as moral choices, what counts as moral grayness, is dependent upon the culture, the civilization, the society, the milieu, the gestalt upon which Geralt finds himself in. I mean, or just the person that is playing the game, right? And so let me kind of close that out so I get rid of this. I'm gonna have too many tabs open. And so coming back to this article, right? So how does The Witcher ruin morality? So the problem with moral systems is that the president. So I was talking about, and then so Mass Effect. You had Mass Effect, and then you had Knights of the Round Table. See now, and so yeah, this is why I wanted to Doom is because in Doom it's obvious. Okay, demons are bad. Demons are bad. Right now, of course, there's characters that are like Hellboy, because then you get to Hellboy. Well, Hellboy's a demon. Hellboy's a demon, but he's like he's the good guy. So I guess Hellboy is the morally gray demon boy. So Hellboy also talks frequently in grunge. He's not quite as monosyllabic as Henry Cavill's Witcher, but Hellboy does talk. He has a grunty. He has a kind of I gotta do this again. He's a very duty, very broad upon the top, and reluctantly doing things frequently. He's a very witchery sort of character. But Hellboy is a morally gray demon. So but it's kind of like if he goes demonic with his daddy, who gave him the giant Amun Rama horns, and the key that opens the gateway to eldritch terrors or diabolic lava flows or whatever he's going to bring forth, right? He can bring hell to earth. So he has to resist his dark side to stay on the middle path, or fighting for good while being right. It's like to fight hell we'll need to use hell, right? That's one of the taglines, right? To fight the bad guys we'll need a bigger bad guy is I think was one of the catch lines for Hellboy. And so, but for the most part, like demons bad, angels good, God good, Satan bad, and so that's like it's kind of like that, So the morality of Doom was pretty clear, and then the morality of Nazis in the 90s, shooting them, was pretty clear, right? And then and so coming back to why, right? Why in games did that happen? You come to that, like I said, the technological and the place that games were in the 90s was that you could only fit. Fun fact: I'm actually working on a Doom. I am working on a Doom, GZ Doom 90s, like Doom 1 Silver Spook game of some. I'm not sure how big it's gonna be, but that's like one of the side projects I'm kind of working on with some of the other members of the Silver Spook Cooperative to put together something. Actually, I just made a level and I added textures into GZ Doom, so we're gonna see what we can do with that. I started out in 3D games actually. Like first Silver Spook game was a Deus Ex Total Conversion, but anyways, Turnus Machina. But Doom didn't have the capacity to do anything. I mean, you couldn't have like a full realized world, or they didn't have the abilities. Actually, one of the first games where you had a more realized world where it wasn't just running around shooting everything was Strife, the game from the 90s. Okay, I don't know if anybody remembers this game, but in Strife, it was made with the Doom engine, but there were characters that you talk to, like the peasant, like they were random. It was like I don't know what to call this. It's like a He-Man, Heavy Metal 2000 sci-fi fantasy world. I've been watching lots of Masters of the Universe. We watched this movie called Fire and Ice, which is Ralph Bakshi of Cool World draws 50,000 frames of butts. Like now he's equal gender opportunity butt artist. He draws women's butts and men's butts. A lot of thongs. Nobody wears pants, as Holly pointed out. And I've been watching a lot of these assless chapped 80s and 90s sci-fi fantasy. But anyways, Ralph Bakshi's slow motion gluteus maximus grabbing, which actually had real actors. So a dude had to have his ass slowly groped for 30 seconds, and that's how long it takes for the hand to slide off of the butt cheek. It's interesting choices of what they wanted to do on the set of that movie. Anyways, the peasant in this game, who is clothed, thankfully, mercifully, is hearing that the Order is really nervous about the Front's actions around here. So the point is that your characters that you could talk to in the game, and you didn't just shoot everyone, right? Now, I guess in RPGs you have towns,
there was, Final Fantasy come out, there was towns, but like in the first person 3D game world, there hadn't really been a lot of that. Well, even let's take let's just go back to Final Fantasy, right? So Final Fantasy, I'll just choose one. Final Fantasy 3. In Final Fantasy 3, there are townspeople, right? And then there's the bad guys. I think it was Kefka. I can't remember who the bad guy was. So, there's you, and then when you're in battle, then you start shooting at the people in battle. And then when you're in the town, you're talking to people in the town. You're sleeping in inns, you're picking up gold, you're taking all of the flaming swords of fire out of everybody's flower pot. You're getting magical crystals out of people's library books for some reason. And then you're like talking to the shop person, and you're buying some mana potions and some health potions and some, buying some new sabers to upgrade your broken low quality dagger or whatever you do in RPGs, which is just buy bigger and bigger swords until you have swords that are made out of freaking neutronium. And then you kill God or something. Don't kill John Romero, okay? Don't kill God. Because we need him to finish making the next edition of the what was that? The John Romero's. He's making a sequel to Sigil with Buckethead doing the soundtrack. So don't kill him yet. Okay, don't kill God. Anyways, so Final Fantasy 3 is a game where the point is that like, but in the first person shooter, it was like harder. They couldn't figure out how to like really do that. Or they hadn't done that. So they're like, okay, well in this game you're gonna like talk to the peasants, and then you'll shoot the order people. I can't remember if you can shoot the peasants though. I think you can't really, because there are people that are giving you quests, and then you can't shoot the people that are giving you the quests, right? So it just kind of limited who you could shoot and when you could shoot and who you could shoot at, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But anyways, so the games hadn't really figured out how to do, like in Doom it was just like, hey, shoot everything in the screen, you shoot. In Wolfenstein, everything on the screen, you just shoot it all, right? And then it had to really figure out like how to do a 3D real-time world where you can shoot all over the place. Because think about it, right? If you were just in a real-time world and you're just walking around shooting at anything, it's gonna break the story. If you just like, if you're supposed to be the good guy, right? That's where the moral choices thing came in, right? If you're supposed to be the good guy, right? And then you start shooting at townskeepers and the bartender, then that doesn't make any sense in the story, right? I mean, unless you want to just have a whack, totally unhinged, just like lunatic fest, or it's just Looney Tunes day, and you just do whatever you want. Just do whatever you want. There's a game called Goat Simulator that our son is playing a lot. Goat Simulator, you just literally just like running around doing whatever you want. There's people in the town, and then you can run over them, and you have a Sonic the Hedgehog goat. You can fly 3,000 feet into the air, go on a roller coaster, like lick people and drag them by the leg and smash them into the side of a lighthouse, and all kind of it's cartoon silly time. It's like Tom and Jerry BS, right? And so nothing makes sense. There's no story in the world. The story is just we're weird 30-year-old nerds, and we're not programming any Navy military drones right now to go blow people up in Iraq. And so let's make this weird game about goats with the Steam Half-Life 2 engine that we work on, because everyone in the information and technology sector is also working for the Death Star, also known as the U.S. Military Industrial Complex. So let's make some funny game about goats in between in our shore leave, basically. And so and we watched a lot of Battlestar Galactica. We played Sonic the Hedgehog. I've watched Star Wars 50 million times. I played Doom. So let's have like a Vader goat and a Sonic the Hedgehog blue goat, and it's just random nerd references. This is the whole thing, and silliness. And so that's one way to deal with it. It's just like, well, we're just gonna have a sandbox where you just throw, we don't have morality, right? Because we're just throwing people around, and it's silly, and nobody dies in it, right? It's literally just a sandbox. It's like a little kid with Legos, and you're just throwing them around in a 3D game. And that was like one of the games that came out like in the 2010, 2012s. But anyways, that's just like one way you can deal with this problem. And this is more about games now, what I'm talking about. But I think it does matter, because it does play into what The Witcher. I haven't even got to The Witcher very much, but I should do that soon. But my point is that like when it was like, okay, now we're gonna have serious games, not just cartoon goat sandbox playtime, where there's no start, there's no finish, there's no arc, there's no serious combat, and we're gonna and it's not like Final Fantasy RPG, which is basically on the rails. Like when you're in the town, you're talking to people. When you're fighting, you're fighting bad guys, and you're talking to people that are nice, normal people. Sometimes you're talking to somebody who's gonna betray you later, but you're talking to people not fighting like morally neutral or good people, or important antagonists that you're having a standoff with. And when you're fighting bad people, right? In Doom, everything is bad. There's no talking. We're not talking about anything. We're just shooting everything that moves, right? And then you have silly time, but then you had like when you had Grand Theft Auto, then it was like, okay, well, what if we have like a story and it's like realistic? It's like a realistic world, and there is some story, but then we also just like let everybody just kill and do whatever they want, just like have sex and just be. I think the Rockstar Games called it like you could be a rock star, and what apparently being a rock star is being able to sexually abuse and kill women. That's kind of messed up, actually. It's like being in Hollywood is being able to abuse people, get away with murder, steal stuff, and just be horrible. Although if you look at like what was it what is that, the Me Too time, right? It's like, oh, what, we can't abuse women and get away with it anymore like we did in Grand Theft Auto and like powerful people in the West always do. Oh no, this is bad. Right? You know what? So speaking of moral choices, right? Henry Cavill, he had a lot to say about Me Too movement, and he added, he had some not so good things to say about it, right? He left. He said Me Too is bad because the movement has left him scared to date women, because it's hard for me to date women now, or it's going to be hard for me to have relationships, which is like, maybe just don't talk about that, or just be like, it's good that women are not going to be abused as much now because people's, it's not going to be so easy to get away with, because it had been, there's a whole history of this, but this is not just history, there's a present of this, right? And, so he made some interesting moral choices in his life when he said such things, among other things. And, now obviously, like, if he comes back and says like, that's, I should not be centering my own white man, famous person self in this, and being like, I hope that, I hope that less women are abused and sexually assaulted, harassed, the casting couch goes away, and the world becomes less patriarchal. And I think that's the most important thing. And just kind of left it at that. That might have been better. But, if you come and apologize, that's good too. I mean, that's better than doubling down and just getting a Netflix comedian special and then joining the far right and becoming Donald Trump's or the Boris Johnson's next running mate. And Henry could do that because Henry is a white guy that people like, a lot of white dudes. So like, if you start going in one direction, you can move from morally neutral. You can start witchering yourself off into the morally darker area, right? What are the Witcher moral choices of the 2010s and 2020s, right? Is called, should I double down and keep moving right and triple down and keep moving right so that I can keep the audiences that are mad about wokeism and are mad about there are too many black and brown people in my games and movies and are mad that immigrants are coming into Europe. So everyone has to do a Witcher moral choice, Henry as himself, right? It's like, am I going to just be silent, just be morally, just don't talk about it, just be neutral, or am I gonna like move with the right? If you start or am I gonna like, okay, I'm sorry, I'm gonna try to not be a shitty dickhead anymore, right? And then so you can Witcher morally move yourself to another direction, right? But what is morally great? Nazism is morally great because the West is the dying fascist shithole. That literally its government is also funding and has been arming. I mean, I don't have time to go. You can watch the Twitch stream to learn more about that stuff. But as the number, if capital, if capitalism, imperialism, racism, colonialism, neocolonialism are real problems, which they are, some people still deny that, and that's called making your moral choice to move your to the darker and darker side. Then those where what not to say that things were, not to say that didn't exist in the 90s, right? But like they are at the forefront, and openly things are moving in the direction of where Hitler was in the 1940s. I mean, people have, and there's so many articles about this. People like, oh, it's not you can't really do satire of the U.S. anymore, right? Why can't the Onion come up with new articles about how terrible things have gotten in the United States and Western countries, right? It's because you can't, after Donald Trump, you can't go like, oh, this is so bad that it could be way worse, and that's kind of funny because there's nothing that you could read a new article and go like, oh my God, is that true? All right, there's nothing that you can look at like, billionaire has new baby grinding machine that sells and makes billions of profits. There's nothing that you could read that's like, oh, that is so outlandishly bad that I couldn't believe that that's happening. So that's I mean, just like Columbine was a major, oh my God, kids were shot in a school. A kid shot other children in a school. Oh my God, and like rocked the whole country for like a long time, right? There are movies just on that one shooting, Bowling for Columbine, and what do we do about Columbine and Columbine? Again, there are mass shootings all the time, like every day in the United States or more now. You know, it's just like, well, another mass shooting. Well, whatever. So like everything has morally slid to the darker and darker. Morally, what counts as definitely bad or just like amazingly bad, and what counts as like morally gray, and what counts as like good is different. You know, it's all shifted, and so anyways, but let's move away from that topic because I gotta get to Witcher. So you know, I did talk about his little moral choices that he made. He also made, he made artistic choices. When it comes to, I know there's like adhering to the canon story of The Witcher is a thing that there was creative differences there, which is like, from my perspective, I don't, I'm not of the mind that like book adaptations to new mediums like TV shows, movies, and games have to be verbatim the exact same way that they were in the book. Like you have to follow the script of the book like it is like the 10 commandments, and if you get anything wrong when you transcribe the Bible, not that I care about the Bible, I mean as a literal demon from hell that is here to eat all of your Christian white souls. I'm joking. I don't know anything about satanic imagery or demons. And so I don't care about the perfect transcription of the Bible. But some people want it to be like you have to take the game and turn it into a movie, like you're taking a Bible and you're transcribing the text. You have to take it as God's word, like what is in the what is in that Star Wars has to be in the next Star Wars thing. The thing is, the Star Wars is all made up. It's whatever George Lucas thought would be neat at the time, and a bunch of set designers like, what would be cool? Let's just call the music played in the alien bar cantina jizz. Let's just call it jizz. That's literally I'm not joking. Let's just call jizz jizz music. Jizz is an swinging genre of music, most notably performed by, and my son just got a action figure of Figrin Dan, or Danny Boy, Bookum Dano, Figrin Dan. Jizz is an swinging genre of music. So if you follow George Lucas to canon, you will be not safe for work. You have to make a rated R video game, TV show, Twitch stream, novelty, blended RPG or tabletop RPG. That is rated R, because jizz is the name of the music. Hey, who wants to go get some jizz? But anybody, you know, I I'm just like itching for some jizz right now. I gotta get some jizz in my ear. That is George Lucas for you, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. That is George Lucas. That is the genius from his little science fiction brain. So if you follow, and my point is that, like, you know, there's differences creatively about the canon, so that's part of why Henry Cavill is no longer with the Witcher series. Blah blah blah. There's a lot to that story. It's being talked about, but but let's go back into The Witcher though. So I gotta go soon. So it's already 11:29. So let's move into the actual Witcher. I'm just talking around The Witcher. I haven't gone into The Witcher, and by into The Witcher I mean obviously like anal penetration. I'm just kidding. That would be like jizz grade of not watchable. Anyways, so the Witcher ruined morality systems for me. And so, angel or devil. The problem for morality system is that they represent one of the most gamey and arbitrary systems. And so, in The Witcher, I'm trying to find the part about The Witcher. So, when you're Geralt of Rivia, many people, their first introduction into the world of The Witcher and to Geralt, in a time where heroes and games were completely silent or trying to be quippy all the time, Geralt stood out as someone on the dry side. All of you reading this probably know that the overall world and the plot of Witcher and 2 and 3. Anyways, I'm just going to skip forward. The game was unique in that it focused on a number of different combat systems and a different approach to storytelling and choice. Like other RPGs, the player could influence Geralt's response in many of the quests and dialogue options. However, unlike those games, Geralt couldn't turn evil, and he couldn't turn outright pure as well. So no matter what choices you made, you didn't like go up on the good scale or down on the bad scale, and then you ended up a Sith or a Jedi, depending on what you did. You couldn't end up as an angel or a saint, or you couldn't end up as the good guy or the bad guy, you know. I think in Undertale it's kind of like Undertale has its own version of that, where like you kill lots of things in the game and all the flowers and your moo milk mommy Tara or whatever her name was, and then you can go bad, and then you get the horror game ending, genocide ending, and then if you go if you play hopscotch and ring around the rosy and get really good at bullet dodging, bullet hell, then you get the happy ending, good person ending. But in Geralt, you are not you don't end up either way. You know, the Geralt sits in the moral gray area between the worlds of human and fantasy people. So it would be reductive for both the world and for Geralt to be reduced to just good and evil. Instead, the choice was built around who the player wanted to side with, either the humans, the magical creatures, or stay as neutral as possible. And so Geralt's character is often, and in this show it's like this as well. Like, this is the video game picture of him. He is often like drawn into or not drawn into, or he is often around these things that are happening that are outside of his. Well, I mean, his job as a Witcher is a monster slayer. Like he's basically like a rent-a-cop. I mean, really, that's what he is. You know, he's a rent-a-cop / maybe like a really, really highly trained magical using. You know, he was basically went through some kind of like serious, brutal concentration camp, super soldier program with medieval characteristics, and he wields big swords, and he like is really good at the fightings and the kung fu or the sword fu. And Geralt is a really fancy dog catcher in a certain sense, right? His job is to get rid of wild animals, right? Or not always though. Sometimes it's people, but usually it's monsters. He has to get rid of monsters. But then like what counts as the monster is the gray. That is the uncertain part of his job always, right? And so one of the early quests highlight this approach. Player comes across elves who are being beaten by humans for smuggling weapons to their people. If Geralt doesn't intervene, it could lead to these elves being killed. As a player, it's easy to think that the people being attacked are the good and the attackers are evil. If you side with the elves and fight the guards, they will run away and thank you for helping them. Case closed, right? But if you do that, however, a later quest line will end when you find something violently killed the humans that you had to meet, and the game implying that it was by the weapons that you allowed the elves to deliver. So the game never stops to inform the player if they were right or wrong, as there was no right or wrong in these cases. Something has to happen, and one side is going to suffer more from it. One of the best and most understated messages of the game comes from the very end. For the sections of The Witcher, it will set Geralt down one of three main paths to the ending. Again, either supporting humans, magical folk, or neutral. The boss doesn't change, and the conclusion of Geralt's story doesn't change based on who you supported. However, if you went the neutral route, you learned that while you didn't bloody your hands in these matters, without having a decisive response to the situation, many more innocent people on both sides were killed because of your inaction. So it's a sharp lesson that being neutral is in fact deciding on the matter. Speaking of Nazis, right? Who was it that was said and is frequently para quoted as saying, if you are neutral in the face of evil, you side with evil, right? Which is how Nazi Germany happened. Is the Germans who did nothing when fascism came through their country, right? And it's like they came for the gays and nobody stood for them. They came for the blacks, nobody stood for them. They came for the women, nobody stood, and then they came for me, and there's no one to stand for me. And it's so that is I guess that does come up by the end of the game, where it's like there's some times where if you don't take any position, that is like worse than taking a position, right? Because that's kind of like it's definitely like the liberal centrist position, which is like, well, we are neither left nor right. Elon Musk has said that, right? Like, I am neither left nor right. I am some third thing, and I stand above it all. And I just make billions of dollars, and the empire that I work for funds and arms Nazis and the police and backs the far right around the world. And that's how I get all my lithium, is by cooing whoever I want, by having the U.S. State Department and the AOS and mountains of money and support to Janine Áñez's administration in Bolivia, the largest country with the largest lithium supply, so that I can have it for cheap to make more billions of dollars and then fund more far right and make color revolutions with the Starlink system that I run. Anyways, so very few games. So my moral neutrality is not neutrality, right? Now the game of a lot of systems and establishments and institutions is to make themselves seem as morally neutral as possible, or morally good. So the West is the rules-based international order. The West is democratic. It doesn't do genocide. It brings freedom and democracy and human rights to the world. The United States brings freedom and democracy and human rights to the world and to its own population, which definitely doesn't have the world's largest prison population, and definitely isn't full of inequality, homelessness, lack of healthcare, food, and starvation, huge threats of fascism, right-wing militias everywhere, with a country balkanizing as we speak, and literally had civil wars with half of the country, huge swaths of the U.S. military siding with fascism. We definitely have never had such problems. The U.S. only brings good to the world, right? The United States is bringing good to Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, and everything that happens in the world is good. Capitalism is good, and the U.S. brings it and maintains it worldwide, right? So making a system seem morally good or neutral, and so you should just be neutral, and like, right? You see what I'm saying? One of my points is, on top of kind of again dovetailing out of The Witcher, but what is morally neutral is not it is not universal throughout all circumstances, throughout all of history, throughout all of the places of the earth, and all of the of alternate realities and fictional universes, science fiction, fantasy, or otherwise. What is right? So that's one thing I kind of like. I don't like about this whole moral neutrality, moral gray, moral systems. Right? Number one, it assumes that because it's kind of it's like everything is political. Like I like to say about that's why my game Neofeud is political. But and I tell you what side I'm on. It's called I don't say it on the Steam page. This is a indigenous left person's take on the entire history of the colonial capitalist Western so-called civilization that actually is barbarism, that banned my language, culture, commits genocide, is blowing up my islands with U.S. military bombs, is imprisoned four times more Hawaiians than any other ethnicity and is currently banning Hawaiian language and culture in a shadow way and trying to eradicate Hawaiians by pushing us out of our own country. I don't say that on the Steam page, but that's what it is. You ask me, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what my moral stance is. You want to know my moral choice? I will tell you what it is. Now when I'm trying to, and so video games and all of this is political. That was the big saying, right, in the game world, right? Leave politics out of the video games. No politics in my video games, right? What is politics still? Politics is when women are protagonists, right? That's part of why everyone's mad about The Witcher. Henry Cavill was mad because, in part, and the dudes were mad because there were a lot of the women director. It is a women director, right? There were 2 women directing Henry Cavill's dude game. That's basically the moral. That was the 2 politicals. That was like that. The creative. I've talked about this before, right? It's basically the director, showrunner of The Witcher, like was Lauren Schmidt and his rich, and I've seen it. Like it's a female gaze show. I mean, let's be real. It's what it is. And so as a non-binary person, I'm like I recognize when it is one and what is not. We watched another show. It's like that's a different gaze. It's basically like who is viewed and who and what is objectified more, what is on screen more, what is not on screen, and how the men are and how they are not, how the women are and how they are not. And it's like, and it's a women director, and it makes sense. And part of the deal was like Henry actually like didn't show up to entire meetings. Like didn't like that, Geralt was sexy or was not as main characterified as he would like. And it's and you could be like, well, that's a creative decision or that's this, but at the end of the day, the people that are every time I see somebody that's arguing for we stand with him or we stand with this, it's basically always a white dude every single freaking time. I'm not saying that means that everything that she has done is good, and everything and the decisions of the showrunner and people working with the showrunner, siding with the showrunner over Henry Cavill, is everything she's did is morally right and everything he did is morally wrong. I'm not saying that, it's now don't play video games, because Henry was actually gaming so much that he missed, like he's addicted to video games. Like, I mean, I understand, I'm a gamer, I know what it's like to have been addicted to games. You got to get some help, Henry, but he was playing games so much that he missed entire important meetings for when they're making the show. That's not a political choice. That's just like, that is just unprofessional levels of video game addiction. And so, and in the end of the day, he's gonna, everyone is gonna make a moral choice in this world, and entertainment is political, that's what I do on these streams. Obviously, if you're paying attention, I usually save it for later, but all entertainment, whether it is the secret invasion of the Cold War pro-capitalist, anti-Russia brain snatchers trying to manufacture more proxy wars and pro-U.S. imperial policies, whether it is the misogyny and the horrible anti-womenness of a lot of Western white dude audiences that got upset about Captain Marvel having one. There were only 3, right? Captain Marvel, Miss Marvel, Shuri are the 3 leading women Marvel characters out of over 30 Marvel shows and movies. There's 3. And this, like, maybe for TV shows, but just counting movies, there's like 30-something, 40-something Marvel movies. There are 3 with women leading roles. Captain Marvel is 1 of 3. And most of them happened way late after 2015. Right? And so, and everyone lost their freaking mind when there was and I talked about this in the previous stream, right? And so, again, now, obviously, like, if you wanted equality, you would have like more balance, like even like 10 women main characters to 30, 40 men main character Marvel movies, right? Because also, I mean, women are also watching these shows, right? But everyone, but the backlash was so extreme, right? And Nick Fury, Samuel L. Jackson also talked about this on Brie Larson, Samuel Jackson defended Brie Larson against this, and obviously he's a dude, and he was like, and he basically came out and said what everybody knows, which is that incel dudes hate strong women, and they won't destroy her. And that again, so again, when we talk about our moral choices in the 2020s, these are moral choices, because there, I mean, and I don't know everything about Sam, but like there are also black dudes, like for example, Dave Chappelle, who have made a moral choice to go, oh, I think I could get more clicks and more views on Netflix, and millions of people will come to my shows and give me money if I be anti-trans and more hateful and just be like, just kind of give passes to pedophiles and all kind of gross stuff, and like, oh, everybody does some sexual harassment, everybody's having sex, saying misogynist gross stuff and then doing quote unquote comedy, and that's a moral choice that Dave Chappelle, another black man, made, right, to move in that direction, because that would benefit his career in that way, his personal gain, right, and then Samuel Jackson was basically like, he was asked, like, when Captain Marvel was review bombed by trolls, who are these trolls, by the way, the people that I'm talking about, for feature the rootless giant man baby white males, basically, for featuring Larson's female superheroes in a leading role. Jackson called Larson a stronger person than people give her credit for. Jackson and Larson first met during the making of Kong Skull Island, and she cast him in a supporting role in her feature directorial debut, Unicorn Store. Anyways, so we bonded through the election while Jackson and Larson were doing her movie when Donald Trump won. She was broken, and I was like, don't let him break you. You have to be strong now. And then when she got Captain Marvel, she called me and was like, they want me in the Marvel Universe. Should I do it? And anyway, and then he later said, she's not going to let any of that stuff destroy her. These incel dudes who hate strong women, or the fact that she's a feminist who has an opinion and express it. Everybody wants people to be who they want them to be, and she is who she is, and she's genuinely that. Jackson has been a star of the Marvel. Anyway, so he's currently in Secret Invasion. That's what I was talking about last week. But again, these are the moral choices, like killing humans or killing elves and magic people, or doing nothing in The Witcher. Like, people don't walk around with swords all day long. That's not what people make choices all day long, every day. Whether you choose to step over the homeless man or try to do something about it, right? Whether you choose to when your boss is sexually harassing your coworker, you just stand around and do nothing, or maybe do something, right? When the way you parent your children, do you like, don't listen to them, treat them like trophies, ignore them? Do you enable every single behavior, or do you give them consequences for their poor moral choices? Though every one of those is a moral choice you're making, right? Now, video games, everybody likes interacting with swords and guns and bullets, and it's fantasy land, and you don't get to do that a lot in real life. But people are always making moral choices all the time, including people that are making films, being in films and games and movies. As people who have millions and millions and hundreds of millions of people with their eyeballs watching and listening to them, they're making moral choices about which way they're going to move the culture all the time, right? Anyway, but let's come back to that. So, and then finish that. So, when Captain Marvel, and so, what was I trying to say with that? Yeah. So that was a choice that people have to make in this time, and it also goes back to the same thing about why the Nazis, right? Again, as I was talking about, Donald Trump's election came out of this push to the right, which is of course a part of the West capitalist system, and it's like deep plutocracy, just completely it is hurting all the people underneath it, and then as capitalism decays, it uses and weaponizes fascism to try to maintain itself. And which is the arrival, it's almost like the inevitable arrival of Trump or somebody like him, and the Boris Johnsons and all of the global far right, as the West's so-called order is turning into disorder and upset populations and unresponsive governments, unresponsive institutions, unresponsive leadership that don't do anything for people's problems. Black Lives Matter happens and they double the police budgets. People ask for healthcare. And Joe Biden does what? I just was reading this article, right? Biden, you know, is over here saying healthcare is a human right, and then yet nothing has done nothing. Everyone's still paying more for healthcare. People are suffering, and people are poorer now than they ever have been. We're gonna build back better. Almost nothing has been built back in the United States. You know, none of the needs of the people are being met. And so, and that produces, right, this push to the darker side, right? A lot of people say Star Wars is about space fascism. Well, if Star Wars is about how space fascism arrives, right, then the United States is in that state. The United States is in the dark side, you know, and so because it's the Earth fascism. And so anyway, but let's come back and try to actually do some of this. So in Geralt's talking about the elves and the humans, right? So the choices that he makes determine whether he will be it doesn't determine like where he will be on some morality slider, right? If Geralt chooses to support the humans or support the elves, things just happen, and things happen differently one way or the other. So kind of the point of the game, I mean, it's a pretty cynical game in that sense, because basically whatever you do, people are going to just keep dying. And Geralt kind of says that in one of the season 1, Geralt does say in the scene where he is in a scene with the queen. I'm trying to find that scene. And yeah, this one, yeah. And he stands off at one point against he ends up fighting the queen's men at one point because he intervenes. This is the thing about Geralt. He's like, oh, I don't get involved in the affairs of the douchey royalty or the affairs of men. I never get involved. But all he does is get involved all day, every day. You know, that's the joke. Is he's like, I'm just world weary, but I just love being a little goody two shoes Boy Scout in the world. You know, that's all he does. He's just like, I'm going to moral choice. I'm going to make my golden hearted moral choices. I'm a little. He is the most old, you know, monster intestines covered, entrails covered. He is the most old, gravelly voiced, you know, Tom Waits throated, you know, world weary Boy Scout ever. He's such a freaking little Boy Scout. All he does is, oh, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna give my life to save this putrid, monstrous, literal abortion, like literally a striga that is a cursed person who is aborted and still carries the umbilical around with her and looks like you know, just a horrifying screeching you know, like 9-inch nailed head ripper, you know, and it's just like creepy as fuck. And Geralt's like, I will go in and fight her personally for 6 hours straight. He's like literally like, he's like self-flagellating. Like Geralt should just take Jesus. Like I'm gonna have a meme where it's like Geralt sees Jesus on the cross, and Geralt's like, I will not get involved in the petty affairs of this Nazarethian and his pompous Pontius Pilate emperors of Rome. I will not get involved. And then he's like, but Jesus though, and he's like, I must get involved. And like Geralt takes Jesus off the cross, and she's like, wait, no, I gotta do this so we can have the religions and stuff. And Geralt's like, no, I will go on the cross for you, Jesus. I will take your sins in the weight of the world. And he just like, you know, because that's basically what he does. Geralt does a Jesus when he's like, because you know, there's a scene where he could just pull his sword out. He could just pull his sword out, slay the Striga monster, right? Which has already killed a Witcher. It's very dangerous. It's already killed a Witcher. And it's like another Witcher. And he's like, he could just kill it and then get the money and be gone. Because he gets paid when he kills and ends monsters, right? So you can just kill it. Then he's like, no. I'm so goody two shoes. I will. There's not even a guarantee. There's like a slight chance that this monster that has been cursed from her entire life. So she has only lived as an animal. This tortured creature that is cursed to just run around and kill and eat anything it comes into contact with an umbilical cord still attached to it, and he is and so he's like, I will try to tie her up with this silver chain, and it probably won't work. And if so, I will barehanded fight this killer demon that has already killed another one of me all night long. Because you have to keep fighting it. You can't let it leave the crypt. You have to keep it inside of this one space. So I'm just gonna keep fighting it all night. Probably die. As there's a chance it might save this cursed girl. And if she gets saved, her mind might be totally screwed and nothing can be done. But just in case, I'm gonna go and get myself killed. This guy is just, But no, I don't get involved. I don't have any opinions on anything. This guy is like, this guy is like Mother Teresa time, where this guy is this guy is Mr. Saintly Paladin as fuck, man, he's like all he ever does is get involved, and in the show, it's different in the game, but like in the show, he's constantly like hurting himself as much as possible to save other people. He is like the whitest of white knights, right? But then he just like acts like, I don't care about anyone. I'm just over here minding my own business in the corner, drinking my ale. I'm drinking my ale with my foot up, darkly. I'm being darkly dark and mysteriously mysterious. I'm like Strider from Lord of the Rings, except way actually more gooder inside. Anyways, so that's Geralt. But anyway. So, but yeah, anyway, coming back to this one. So there's this scene though where he's asked to. I should have put a streak on. It's kind of scary though. I don't want to show you what that looks like. But it might freak everybody off of the stream. He comes into the palace in the scene with the cursed person who turns into a hedgehog looking anthropomorph, and he basically says he's not gonna. He says he's not gonna choose a side. He does end up choosing a side, and forgot what the point of that was. Yeah, and so in this scene, and what he ends up doing. I mean, it's always basically like by the end of the episode. Like I think that maybe the books or the games is different, but like by the end of the episode, he always kind of does the best possible thing. Go all the way to the very last minute. He does like the most goodest, most angelic, most cherubic. He does like the seraphic. He always makes the seraphic choice. Like Geralt gets like, Angel of God award every single time, Like could I if he could possibly endanger himself and his life more, if he could possibly hurt himself more, he will like self-flagellate if it could possibly help someone just slightly, It's basically what he always does. Well, he knows that this character was cursed, right? But then he ends up turning against the queen, and the queen orders his death, which obviously that puts himself in. Obviously, he got an entire army of an entire major nation is now turned on him because he's like, no, you can't kill this hedgehog, you can't kill the hedgehog. And obviously, it is a person, but he's constantly like kind of making those choices. That's basically the whole theme of the show is there's people who look like monsters, but actually they're good inside. It's a lot like the Secret Invasion, There's people who look like reptilian space overlords that are controlling the entire world, and but they're not. They're just good inside. No, that Secret Invasion is there's some weird undertones of that, but. I should say Captain Marvel is a show that's like that, where like you have the Skrulls, right? The Skrulls, as I was talking about the other time, not that person. Where's the Skrulls? The Skrulls are they look like reptiles. That's Nirvana. That's not Skrulls. Okay, the Skrulls kind of look like Hedgehog Man. That's what I was trying to say. So the Skrulls look like really creepy reptilian makeup that makes them look almost kind of look demonic. Actually, they have demonic eyes, no eyebrow, reptile like creepy long ears. They have like weird massive scarification or some kind of just wrinkled to hell chin and cheek areas. So they look like what would be considered a bad guy when you look immediately at them, right? They have this kind of they look like lizard people, right? I think they're called lizard people by Nick Fury. And then you're like, but by the end it's like, oh, they're just displaced. They have been displaced from their planet. They're refugees. Their home was destroyed. They're looking for a new home. And then Nick Fury promised them a home and it didn't deliver. And so now they're mad in Secret Invasion, right? And so a lot of this show, it deals with things that look like monsters, like this creature. Oh, it's a monster. And then the queen is like, it is a filthy, vile creature. Kill it. And she orders her men to kill it. And Geralt's like, no, we can't kill it. The cursed Striga character's like, oh, it looks like a monster, but actually there's a person in there, so we can't kill it. I will fight it till I probably get myself killed. Earlier on, there's another. In the first episode, there's a character that's it's unclear whether there's a girl who is accused of being a demon or a monster, and then there's another nasty sorcerer guy, both and who is and Geralt's like, I'm not sure which one of you is the monster yet. I'm gonna think about it, right? And so that's every episode, especially when it comes to his part, because there's Yennefer, and then there's the how do you spell it? There's the hot witch character, as Holly calls this character, and Yennefer is the another major character that has an arc, at least in the season 1. They are separate, like Yennefer and what's the last one? The little kid. There is the chosen surprise child, and each one of them is kind of like doing their own thing. But when it comes to the Witcher himself, he's always in his arc. He's always in each episode. He's basically finding a new creature on one side of these two sides, whether they're human or they're like the magical elvish side. And it's often for most of it, it's unclear like which would be the better path to take. By the end, it's usually like, okay, well, I see why he chose that. It's because, the thing is though, it does happen to work out against the odds, because it's Hollywood bullshit. So it's like, I mean, Geralt would probably, he'd probably be dead if he actually did what he did. Like if the king or queen of a European kingdom ordered someone to die and then you intervene, you'd be dead, basically, right? It's only because this is like Hollywood stuff, so that's why it kind of works out. But you can kind of see why he makes those decisions by the end. But it's always like choosing between one of multiple factions to side with, and he often goes back as new information comes to light. He goes back and forth. Geralt is almost like medieval. He's like medieval Blade Runner. He is a cop running down some person who the society needs to get rid of, except in this one he's more like a Ronin Blade Runner. He's just like working for himself. He's like, but I guess he's like Din Djarin. He's like Mandalorian. He goes off. He works for money. He just needs money. He's like, I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna hunt something. I'll bring him in. Now Din Djarin brings them in, right? Mandalorian brings in the bounties that are wanted, and also there's other aspects later on that he gets connected with wider culture, but he's kind of a solo character. He also talks in a monotone. I'm the cowboy. I'm a tough Clint Eastwood. No, this is like gruff voice. It kind of sounds like Kung Fury, but that's because that's just Hollywood action movie characters. Hollywood action movie leading men voice, especially 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s. It's a thing. It's also game protagonist, game dude protagonist voice. That's what that is. I'm a real serious dude. I'm really tough, and also I like to drink, and then I make goody two shoe moral choices all the time, even though I'm supposed to be some kind of like morally ambiguous anti-hero something. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just some pasty white nerd making some bullshit up of what I think it's like to be a tough guy. That's basically what it is, though. And so the Mandalorian's character also is like, wandering the universe, and then doing these jobs, and then getting involved. Now Mandalorian also gets involved by the end into disagreements. Like, for example, the Mandalorian in the town, he has to make these choices. Like, am I gonna help the town? Is the town, the town versus the Sand People is similar to the elves versus the humans, right? Because at one point where Mandalorian's like, the Sand People are not just total monsters and we should kill them all. The Sand People were here first, and then people showed up. They've been here for thousands of years, kind of like white people showing up inside of the United States and Hawaii, where I'm from, as a native Hawaiian. And he's like, well, maybe that we shouldn't just kill them all, and they shouldn't just be feared and hunted and trying to eradicate them. And so he makes a deal, right, between the Sand People and the human townspeople to fight that big dragon in one of the big dragon-like science fiction monster on Tatooine in the first season, right? That's a lot like what The Witcher does. Works for hire, right? Bounty hunter, works for money, and then somehow gets deeply involved in brokering peace, stopping big bads, and then getting between multiple factions and resolving their differences for them. It's kind of that's what I meant when I said the unbearable weight of the golden-eyed, golden-hearted dude protagonism. Because that's basically what it is, right? Which is, it's another form of male power fantasy is what that is, really. It's about saving the world. It's saviorism. It's the valorization, which is like, it's a fantasy, and like whenever you're playing a video game, you're in a fantasy land of some kind, and so it's dangerous to believe that. I've talked about that, I think, in a recent stream, but it's dangerous to live forever in fantasies that give you exactly what you want, how you want them, in an idealized way that caters to adolescent male sensibilities, except now you're 30, 40 years old. And that is part of how you get fascism, is you have and that's how you get masses of ostensibly grown up male people, and other people as well, but especially the male people, who are not grown up and still think the world exists to serve them, and that the world should revolve around them, like the world revolves around you as the protagonist of a video game or a movie. But a video game is even worse in a lot of ways, because you can spend 10,000 hours, and you are specifically taking on that role, doing the things in the game. So it makes it more pervasive. It gives you the sense of agency, and the sense of like, I am controlling this world. The world works for me. The world exists for me to, like, the world is just a lot of damsels waiting for my awesome, cool goodness, but also anti-hero-ness to save it. And there is treasure for me to collect. There are weapons for me to get. There is armor for me to get. There's experience for me to have. There are women and girls and whoever else that I'm gonna have sex with throughout this game. And if I play the game right, and it's not very hard, I will win the girls, the treasure, fame, glory, prestige, power, superpowerdom. I'll become unkillable, save the universe, right? And that like, and that sort of and like The Witcher is not free from that. It's in that, right? Single-handedly, one guy is going to be killing all of these ghouls, all of these monsters, surviving, and then also solving all of these really difficult, intractable problems. Now, they don't always get fully solved, but like they're like more or less resolved each. They're resolved in the best way possible at the end of each episode, and also in the game. They're not necessarily like the world is perfect now that you beat this quest, but it is like the monster's gone, and you've gotten this experience. People thank you, people don't thank you, but it is it's still like you are the agent in the world rather than you are part of the world, and that's something that it's very difficult to. It's something that's very difficult to do. It's difficult to do collectivity, and it's obviously difficult to do real realism in games, which is why I prefer I tend that's part of why I don't like these sandbox games. I don't like the games that like go on, as I said, for like way too long, because it gets people lost in and drawn in, and to the point of addiction, like Henry Cavill himself, who was literally playing games when he should have been showing up to acting meetings, preparing for scenes, and that's part of why he lost his job. Part of it. And it draws people in so deeply, and entices them in so deeply, and becomes their entire world for them, like a drug, like heroin or other drug addictions, that in the sense that it interferes with their ability to participate in real life or in the rest of their life, and teaches them things that are not, they're not necessarily moral choices, not good or bad things, but it just teaches them that the world is, it teaches them like incorrect things about the world, because the world is not a game. The world does not operate. When you walk into your job, when you walk into your office, or into wherever you are, into your university, into your classroom, into your family life, in your cooperative, in your community, right? You don't come in and solve the community's problems. You don't get to choose for the whole community, right? What side you're going to take, and that impacts the world in some serious way. Like, you can impact the world, but people have their own agency in their own lives. Like, everyone is their own Geralt, everyone is their own person. Everyone is and being able to like work together with all the other people to make an actual impact, which is how impacts are actually made, right? Not by single individuals saving the world, right? That's what it is the West is a world with 330 million people who have been spoiled to think that they are all the protagonists saving the world. They don't have a world to save. The world, it's way harder to actually get to do real work in the world than it is to play a video game, because it's not work. You're playing a video game, right? You're not mastering any arts in a video game. You're just pushing the buttons, right? Getting good at a video game is like getting good at you're getting good at pressing the X button and the direction buttons around, and like for a handful of people, like, well, I'm gonna be a famous Twitch streamer. I mean, for a handful of people, that's gonna be something that you could do, is being good at the esports, but that's not realistically, as a society. You can't have 330 billion people who their whole thing is, I'm really good at saving princesses in digital fake spaces made by overworked game devs for some huge corporation. That's not a sustainable civilization, and so what you get is upset, pissed off 30, 35, 40, 45-year-old, mostly dudes, and disproportionately white, going, I don't like this world that doesn't give me my career and give me fame and give me what I want easily. So I'm going to go listen to the nearest, loudest voice that enables that, whether that's Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson, whether that's some shitty right-wing YouTuber, a beardy dude that's going to be like, no, it's women are the problem. Feminism is the problem. You're an awesome, really cool, good dude, even though you don't have a job, you don't have any work ethic, you don't communicate, you don't do shit. You talk in grunts and think that your sword skills are going to be attractive to women or employers. And you have the whole society is built on that now, because again, that's like, I make games for a living. That's why I talk about this, because I know that that's a huge problem in the gaming culture. And so as a game dev, you have to make those moral choices. Also, like, are you going to make a game that could sell more copies by relabeling Nazis as German combatants? Because all the people who were 5 and 10 and 15 and 20 in the 80s and the 90s that played all these games, now they're 30 and 40, 50 years old, and now they've all listened to the right-wing podcast. They've gone down that rabbit hole, and now what they want is, don't offend their sensibilities, because Nazis weren't so bad. Actually, they were just really proud of their country. Are you gonna do that as a game dev? You have to make the moral choice of, are you going to Are you going to make your game full of microtransactions that are predatory, full of this infinite content farm of watered down stories? Are you going to underpay your writers as the game company? Are you going to underpay your game creators and artists as the game company? Are you going to, like CD Projekt Red did, take millions and millions of dollars of investment funds, stick them in the pockets of the CEO and the CFO, and make them billionaires, and then not produce a game for 10 years? Cyberpunk 2077. Are you going to be transphobic? Cyberpunk 27, right? That's a choice that the game companies make. Are you going to make these mega content farms that further enable more people to enable their childishness and their lack of maturity, right? And so with Neofeud and Neofeud 2, it's like I don't like part of it is I don't like these massive games that go on forever and ever and ever. I don't, like I said, I don't have the time to. I'm too busy being an adult in the real world with a family, with a partner, with a wife, with children that I have to help raise. I have to do work to make money, to pay for the electricity and the rent and the house that needs upkeeping and the lights and the internet that we need to stream and get all the things that I need to do to have the job that as the Silver Spoon Cooperative. So I think it's like people like the games that demand hundreds and thousands of hours, I think are actually net over the longer haul. Immediately they might make some money. Immediately it's a lot of fun and it's, oh wow, I can just be in this thing forever. But over the longer haul, I think they, even the other civilizations have recognized and actually limit the screen time. More advanced civilizations than the West have limits on the screen time, especially for young people and for children while they're developing, of massively online multiplayer games and also social media, and they try to steer people in a certain direction because they recognize that this is a problem. This is how you know that it really is a problem, is when advanced civilizations that have more in their country than all of the Western people combined by a factor of 2, and they literally ban these types of things. And people go, well, that's authoritarianism. Well, I mean, growing up it sometimes means, dealing with other, they call it the tyranny of other people, but the people who say things like the tyranny of other people are little baby white man tyrants, right? That's the same way that capitalist U.S. dudes talk about China. They're like, oh, I tried to do business there, but they wouldn't let me just open up. They wouldn't let me just open up the sweatshop I wanted. They wouldn't let me, make billions of dollars and then pay my workers nothing and get away with it. They executed a billionaire there, right? And the thing is, people will laugh about the billionaires getting killed in submarines, but then at the same time they go, oh, you can't punish people because what if I want to be a billionaire? What if I want to make it big? What if I want to be Elon one day? And it's like, well, you can't enable spoiled giant baby video game players like Elon Musk, Deus Ex is his one, and then have a society that is run by people like giant spoiled gamer white men like Elon Musk and is filled to the brim with wannabe Elon Musks, crypto bros, all these entrepreneur bros, all the people that are not unionizing because they want to be the head of the company someday, that are mostly these same kinds of people, or all of these people going down all of these right and pro-capitalist rabbit holes. You have that society because your society has made bad moral choices in the 80s, the 90s, the noughties, the teens, and now. And you have to make societal better. The thing is, it's like, now the West doesn't have functioning government, so you couldn't do a actual enforcement of any laws ever. There's no laws that are enforced. It's just total barbarism now. The richest people just say, I want to steal trillions of dollars from the United States public 401ks, municipal funds, and everyone's investments, and everyone's future in the 0809 heist, and all of the U.S. government, the executive and the legislative and judicial branch to go. They write new laws. Congress literally wrote new laws to enable the 0809 banksters that broke the entire world and took everyone's treasure away. So that was a moral choice that the West has collectively made to not take control of their governments, to get something, to produce a collective mechanism for enacting upon their society actual positive rules that can train the entire society or help build a society that's functional. So what you have, that's why the United States is the country that it deserves, unfortunately. And so I think that's a thing that this is not really to do with The Witcher, but that's just kind of my personal reflection spinning off of it, which is that number one, moral choices and the decisions that people make, and what makes a choice gray or not, shifts and is dependent on the culture that it's in. It is not a great choice to be a Nazi in China, in Vietnam, in Cuba, in Venezuela, in these countries that have some kind of functioning civilization. They're not gray areas. It's just you can't. And if you do, you will be removed from the society. Let's put it nicely like that, right? Being a pedophile, like Vosh is like, oh, pedophilia is not that bad. There's a lot of people that are like enabling that. That is not a gray area, except in certain gamer spaces. Being a pedophile is a gray area for gamer spaces, for a lot of white nerds, and for obviously billionaires and people who run the West, including the Royal British Crown, including all of Epstein's friends, which includes all of the upper class, political and business elite, U.S. presidents, all of them, and then that's the moral gray area. And also, obviously Japan only recently raised the age of consent from 13. So, what counts as the moral gray area is question. What counts as right and wrong, right? I didn't even get into the racism part of this, but as somebody who is not a white person undergoing present race-based oppression, because The Witcher deals with that, right? The people that are a different race and they're oppressed because of that, like the elves, enslaved, used, right, killed, pushed out of their place, right? Well, I mean, as a Native Hawaiian person, an indigenous person who has been invaded by the United States, language ban, pushed out of our place, being killed by the U.S. police, have been killed by the U.S. forces here in Hawaii, including the U.S. Navy that literally lynched a Native Hawaiian in the 1930s, and then they got away with it. The white rich people of the U.S. Navy personnel, their families, and the wealthy strung a Hawaiian guy up from a tree, killed him, and they gave themselves an hour prison sentence as a joke. There's a picture of all the white people smiling when they lynched a Hawaiian person in Hawaii. That's just one of the ways in which the West and whiteness has racism against Hawaiians and people of color, Pacific Islanders, and anti-Hawaiianness in Hawaii. It just is one place has impacted us. On top of the banning of our language and culture, stealing of our universal healthcare, destruction of our socialist, anti-imperialist, environmentally sustainable, while simultaneously technologically advanced society has hurt us. And so this idea that like, oh well, there's two sides. I don't really like that both sides thing, right? More frequently than not, there are sides doing genocide, and then there are sides that are suffering the genocide, resisting. Like, for example, the black population in the United States, indigenous population in the United States, the Palestinians in the Middle East. If the United States and the West is supporting a side, like, for example, the far right in Bolivia, which the U.S. was supporting, there's a good chance that it's not on the right side. And so this like moral gray area is a very liberal. This like there's the good and the bad, and there's these two sides, and each side has. Like in Charleston, there's some fine people on both sides. Now that freaked out Americans because Donald Trump is just saying the truth, which is that the United States is okay with Nazis, right? But most of the time, it pretends to be like this kind of above it all centrist. We're outside the world. We don't have any of our own personal baggage. We don't have any of our own sins. The United States is the world's police officer, right? Going around to all these different places and solving their problems for them. Like, we're going to solve Iraq for them. We're going to bring freedom and liberty to Taiwan. We're going to solve the Philippines. We're going to help them get more free. We're going to solve Hawaii for them. We have no moral anything. We're just helping Hawaii become democratic. We're going to help Africa, Latin America, Asia become democratic and free. We're just inside of Rwanda. There is Hutus and Tutsis. These people, we have nothing to do with, I don't know, the history of colonialism, white supremacy that made all the problems in Rwanda. We're just coming into Rwanda like the Witcher, solving their little problems for them. We have nothing to do with that, right? So I really don't like that whole this kind of ahistorical, undialectical problems come out of nowhere, and then and the protagonist, white guy protagonist, shows up and solves the problems for the two sides, who both sides made some good arguments, but now I come in as the third, actually purely good arbiter of justice, as a civilized, advanced white man, and solve your fucking problems for you. Actually, that kind of irritates me. So I should probably stop before I go off on a rabbit hole. Because that's not what the United States does. Everything has a political valence to it. That's not what the West does. It doesn't. There is no, now there are, like, obviously in the real world, the people have differences, like on individual levels, on personal levels. People argue things, but on a systems level, on an institutional level, when it comes, and especially when it comes to the last 500 years, and certainly when it comes to current geopolitics, there is not like, oh, there's this one side. When it comes to the Nazis and not the Nazis, right? People. I mean, most Westerners and liberals can only get that. Some of them. I shouldn't say all of them. When you ask the average American, okay, well, there's, or at least before 2018 or something, there's the Nazis and then there's the not the Nazis. So is there some fine points on both sides? Or, if Geralt comes into a town and there's Nazis that are shooting at these people, killing them based on their ethnicity, like, I don't know, in Donbass region. Like, if Geralt goes into Donbass in Eastern Europe, where he's from, and he sees Nazis are mass lynching, killing, blowing up innocent people, blowing up preschools, blowing up churches, blowing up places of worship on their holy days because of their religion. Is Geralt gonna, okay, well, I don't know, let's see who's the monster now. Right? Because that's not actually how the world works a lot of the time. Especially in recent history, certainly during colonialism. If Geralt walks into a slave plantation in the 1850s, it's like, okay, well, let's see. I don't know, maybe the slave's the monster. Maybe this person who is in chains, whose parents were brought over on a boat full of other black people by white people, and has been enslaved and treated like a subhuman for the last centuries. Maybe that I don't know. It's kind of morally gray in this American slavery with this white tobacco farming rich guy with all these slaves whipping their back, making them fight each other to the death in Mandingo battles, and that's funny to the white man. Maybe let's see. I actually, when I think about it, like, I think a lot of people that are not white dudes is gonna be a little bit, it's gonna hit a little different, right? Unless you're really deep in your white head, it's gonna be like, actually, the way that I experience racial oppression and racial differences is not so much like, oh, this one side is just as bad as the other side, and then it's only that they, for now, they're just being hurt a little more. Now it's not always like that, but when it comes to the colonial, and black and brown and indigenous oppression, it's different from inter-European on European problems. Now, if you're talking about French versus British, that's something else. If the French, there are some French will be like, well, the British, they oppressed us, they attacked us, and the British will go, oh, the French, they're so mean, they're so nasty, and they're both colonial, nasty, horrible entities that are currently also in multiple. They're all over the world still, and the French actually have higher rates of poverty, death, unemployment, and prison rates in the United States. Sorry, in the United States. So if you're black, African, or non-white in France, and you're an immigrant, you actually have a lower rate of income, poverty, and higher rates of prison in some cases than the United States. Pretty amazing, right? But actually, all of Europe is like that, though. But between Europe, like, if you ask the Germans about the French about the Germans, they will say certain things. They'll be like, oh, those terrible Germans, they came to our France and they did this and that. And the Germans will say, but the French, they made us pay back mountains of loans, and the French hurt us, and they did this, and that's why we had to turn into Nazis and kill the world, or try to. And then, I've seen these arguments, and so, like, I'm in inter-European struggles is one thing, but when it comes to, like, Europeans against indigenous Turtle Island, against Africa, against Asians, against the Pacific Islands, that's a different reality. It's much just like, I don't know who's on the right side here, So I mean, that's my comment. It's clear who's on who is doing the enslaving. Now, of course, if it's not clear to you, maybe you're just asshole white guy. I don't know. But anyways, and then which, you know, in which case you can feel free to just, you know, probably not watch these videos anymore, but I don't care. So anyway, that's the end. It's already 12:29. I gotta wake up and do a Twitch stream in the near future, so I should probably end this soon. But anyway, so that's The Witcher. I'm not saying the show is bad. The show is fine. I don't know what's gonna happen with season 4. You know, it does feel like Game of Thrones. I watched Game of Thrones. Like, Neofeud is actually, speaking of medieval stuff, Neofeud is a dystopic adventure, cyberpunk adventure game in the vein of Blade Runner with an overlay of Game of Thrones like political intrigue and 1366 by 768 hand-painted stylized visual. So Game of Thrones, like, Neofeud is not The Witcher, obviously, but like the medieval political intrigue aspects and that stuff was in the milieu when I was making this game. Neofeud, obviously feudalism, coming from, you know, the ye old Europe, is part of the game, and but it's more about how feudalism and the feudal system in which The Witcher exists, in which Game of Thrones is existing as well. Feudal era Europe is deeply problematic itself, and so this is kind of a indigenous left perspective on feudalism, capitalism, colonialism, and the history and trajectory of Western civilization, and the oppression that it continues to exert upon people of color, the poor, the common people, and the serfs slash workers slash poor slash you know, commoners versus the feudal slash CEO slash king slash colonial power slash what is the other title? You know, so there are characters that are literally lords and viscounts of market. They're viscount slash marketing VP, and then there are knight slash police. The police are the new knights of the Western world that do the bidding of their unjust, tyrannical, feudal rulers. And so that's actually a major theme of Neofeud. And if you would like to find out more about that, or you like cyberpunk adventure games, Neofeud is on Steam. It is on sale right now, so you can go check it out. If you enjoyed the game, consider leaving even a very short review, because it will increase the likelihood that people finds the game on Steam. If you would like to get Neofeud, you can also get it on itch.io for Windows, Mac, and Linux. And it is on sale there. Also, maximum revenue comes to us when you buy it there. And also, you can get games like Decolonators, Indigenous Star, Pigeon with Gun, Woman is a book by Holly, which is about being raised as a woman in right-wing evangelical Protestant Christianity. It is not a historical retelling, but a work of fiction that's about critiquing the Jordan Peterson stans and the Joe Rogan fans and people who live in, well, right-wing evangelical Protestant Christianity specifically. Anyways, you can get it for free or donate any amount of money to help us out. You can help us out even more on patreon.com/neofeud, where you can become a Patreon patron. Any amount of support does go a long way to help us out. You get access to the Silver Spook Discord behind the scenes on what we're working on, as well as the Silver Spook University, which is over 1,000 hours of all the content I've ever created that is also categorized according to topics. And also, if you would like, you can follow at Silver Spook Games at octodon.social, at Silver Spook Games at mastodon.social on Mastodon. You can follow at Silver Spook Guy on Twitter, at Silver Spook Games for the games related stuff, and we also have Instagram and Facebook. And don't forget, you can also follow Terminus C is the account for Terminus Cyberstar, which is a low poly cyberpunk immersive sim in the vein of late 90s PC games like Deus Ex and System Shock 2. And it's actually a game that is, speaking of the PC games, the original Terminus Machina was my original 3D game. I was talking about old school 3D games. This is one of those retro 3D games. And it's also a game that is nearly completed. Follow the game if you would like to learn more about it. Join the Discord if you would like to do that. Also, you can follow Holly at the Tech Fairy. Holly is poet, educator, moderator here for myself, producer, manager for KNX TV, a weekly Goblin Gatherings and a Twitch stream, variety, and music show that I'm sometimes involved in. Holly writes for and moderates for that. So consider checking that out and following Holly there. And also, this was pretty interesting. You know, I was like, we don't know any demons. I've never known any demons. You know, I've never summoned demons. I definitely have no idea. You know what it's like in the ninth circle of hell. And then actually we had like literal missionaries walk by recently, and they saw we had the symbol of Baphomet. How they had the symbol of Baphomet on their shirt, and the missionaries were like, and then they just walked on. So that's how you do it. You know, it's actually useful. It's useful to have a lot of demonic paraphernalia around. So that's why I'm gonna go wearing my pentagram necklace. I'm gonna go out with demon horns on. That way, in case any Jehovah's Witnesses are like, "Hey, I want to tell you about Jesus," and they run away. So that's how it works. Anyways, thanks a lot, Victor, and thanks everybody for watching. And we'll be back in the evening for more of the. We'll be hanging out on Twitch. And keep your mirror shades polished. Keep your shiny swords polished. Keep your golden eyes golden. And keep on making your moral choices. You little goody two shoes.